Welcome to Dark Horizon Creations. I'm Mike. This time we're taking a look at the Action Force Swarm Trooper by Valaverse. Now, if you hadn't already, please follow, like, and subscribe to my social media accounts on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Don't forget to hit that bell icon so you get a notification of when I post new content. My, how time flies when you're having fun. We have come to the end of our product reviews for the Action Force Series 1 action figures. And we're going to close things out with the Swarm Trooper. The Swarm Trooper is a really interesting character within the Action Force franchise. Now, if you don't know anything about their backstory, the states within the United States of America become independent republics when the Union falls. So the leadership of each state is approached by an unknown entity and offered security. And that security is in the form of swarm troopers. Swarm troopers are prior service military personnel from both the United States and foreign countries who have become augmented by biometrics, and they have undergone neurosurgery to install a biometric chip within their brain that allows them to network together like a hive and instantaneously communicate intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance from multiple positions and operate together much in the same way that insects do. That is where the name swarm is derived from. What agency, what entity they're working for, we don't know. That is a mystery. I have my suspicions that it's Crimson Shadow Technologies, but I could be wrong. That hasn't been revealed yet. Nonetheless, here we have the action figure. I have to tell you guys, like all the Action Force figures, I'm just blown away. This thing looks really, really awesome. So let's go ahead and take a look at the packaging. Like all the Action Force figures, on this side you have the Action Force logo and emblem. On this side panel, you've got artwork of the Swarm Trooper. On the back panel, you've got obligatory product shots of the figures within Series 1. And then, of course, you've got the file card for the Swarm Trooper himself. File name, Various, primary MOS, Special Forces. Secondary skills, counterintelligence and counterinsurgency. Birthplace, Various. Rank and affiliation, ranks unknown, the Swarm. The bio says, after the fall of the United States, each state government maintains order by declaring themselves an independent republic within their territories. Many of these republics were left with minimal or no military assets for defense, making them vulnerable to attack by rival republics. To counter this threat, Redacted introduced a solution called the Swarm. The Swarm is a paramilitary group controlled by Redacted, and is comprised of former military personnel from both the U.S. and foreign nations. Swarm troopers undergo surgery to install neural implants in their brain, allowing them to interface as a group, much like a hive of insects. This allows each team member to receive real-time information and react faster as a team rather than as an individual. The cost for utilizing these highly trained mercenaries is high, and Redacted exacts a significant toll on its customers and their control of their republics, making them a pawn in a larger game. So you can see that the real reason for the Swarm is not to provide security for the independent republics that they potentially serve, but rather to use them to blackmail those republics into surrendering control to this unknown entity. As I've stated before, within Action Force, there are multiple factions operating within the remnants of the United States, all out to achieve their own goals and objectives. The only organization with any sort of moral compass is Action Force. And their goal is very simplistic: to restore democracy and to restore the United States of America. To achieve that, they have to go head to head with the Swarm. And the Swarm themselves are special operations personnel. Now that they are biomechanically enhanced, they're an even greater threat. So let's take this guy out and see what he is all about. And I like to point this out with each of these action figures before I open it. You can see how nice the plastic tray is that the action figures are shipped in. inside the box, you have the base tray that the figure and all the accessories are in. There's a plastic film covering that to keep all the accessories in place, and then a plastic cover on top of the film to secure it. And this cover is not secure with tape or goofy twist ties or anything of that nature. So that's really cool. I really do like that. And you simply pull the film off and take your action figure out, and there he is. And you can see how nice this guy looks. Really, really awesome all the way around. Now, Bobby recommends that each of these action figures be heated either with a hair dryer for around 30 seconds or immersed in really warm tap water for the same amount of time in order to loosen up all the joints due to a temperature variance while the figures were being shipped in transit. And what that's going to do is allow the joints to loosen up freely so that they can be moved without risk of breakage. So what I'm going to do now is heat the action figure off camera. We're going to come back and see what he's all about. Okay, so we're back with the Swarm Trooper. I have heated him with a hair dryer, and I believe all of the joints are loose. So let's go ahead and take a look at the figure. And as you can see, he looks really nice all the way around. Really cool helmet, and the visors on the helmet look just like the eyes on an insect. It's got the Swarm logo in the center of his torso armor. He's got shoulder armor, bicep armor, gauntlets for his forearms, thigh armor, shin armor, and armored boots. All the way around, really nice. Now, I want to point out something on the back of his torso armor. Right here and right here are where two sections connect with these little tabs, and you can see this one sort of sticking out. This one was loose, and what I ended up doing was putting a little dab of Gorilla Glue on it, and it caused it to slip in place, and it's not coming out. And I think that's a better solution than just trying to heat these with a hair dryer and push them in and them coming popped out later on. I don't plan on removing their chest armor, so that's the solution that I went with. See, they've got armored elbow pads. There's the sheath for his fixed blade combat knife, holster for the Silencerco Maxim 9, and this is a copy of the Black Hawk holster. It's designed just like that. All the way around, really cool action figure. As far as articulation, his head will swivel left to right, as well as pivot down and up. Forward and lateral movement at the shoulder, and this is kind of inhibited because of this. And you can see that right there. So the shoulder will go down, but it won't come up much further than that because of this. Butterfly joint does function. Torso's on a double ball joint. So there's a ball joint on the upper torso as well as the lower torso. See, they've got waist swivel, bicep rotation, double jointed elbow, wrist rotation, and let's see, it will also pivot. There we go. It's a little bit tight. Forward and lateral movement at the leg, thigh rotation, double jointed knee, really stiff joints there. Foot will pivot down, and it's also on a ball joint, so it'll allow the ankle to rotate. There we go. You guys can see that. I want to point something else out on this figure on the back. You can see there's a little bit of paint rub here as well as here. It's not too bad, but you can still see it just slightly. And that could be from where I heated it with a hair dryer, I'm not for sure. Now let's talk about what else is included in the package. do get your Action Force display stand. It's got this groove cut in it, slot for your file card on the back of the box. If you so choose to do so, you can cut that out and display it in this slot or leave it on the box, however you choose to keep it. Action Force logo is cut in there, and then you've got 4 pegs, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, most of these figures have not been able to fit on the pegs because the port in their foot was made smaller than the diameter of the peg. One solution is you could attempt to heat it with a hair dryer to soften this material up and then place it on the peg, hoping that it will stay. And I'm not sure that he's going to fit on here, but we'll find out. No, not really. It's just the ports on the foot are too small. So you've got a couple different options you could try to remedy this. You can use a rotary tool and put a sanding drum on here and do a couple laps around these pegs to shave some material off. Now, one thing that's going to happen if you do that, you're going to remove the gunmetal paint, and you could repaint it afterwards, you know, but I would hate to do that and remove any paint off of it. The other option, and again, I wouldn't recommend doing this if you're not familiar with customizing action figures, is you could take something like an X-Acto and try to cut away some of the material on the inside. And I'll demonstrate that for all of you with mine so that you can see what I'm referring to. Just taking the blade like this and twisting it very carefully on the inside of the port to try to widen it. If you're going to do that, you have to do it far enough into the port on the foot for it to go down on the peg. And even that really isn't working that well. And that's one issue that's going to be remedied for Wave 2 and moving forward. Also included, let's go ahead and pop these out so you can see these. Here's a Silencerco Maxim 9 integrally suppressed sidearm. And this particular weapon, when it was designed, the base firearm was a Smith & Wesson M&P 9mm. And for the production gun, Silencerco has produced their own proprietary firearm. And the way this works is the sound suppressor is integrated into the firearm. The barrel is fixed in place, it does not move. And the slide, the only section that cycles when the weapon is fired, is the rear portion of the slide, what is in black on here. The weapon does take standard Glock magazines from the Glock 17. And it's a very accurate gun, very reliable gun. But one of the problems with this gun is the rear sight back here. You know, when you acquire your sight picture and you fire the weapon, you know, it's back here. This is a really long sight radius. So there's a plate here where you can attach a micro red dot onto the pistol. And if you went out to look at one of these to purchase it, you would see that. And it will fit right into the holster. Just push it straight down like that. Here's the fixed blade combat knife. You can see the silver paint there on the blade, really cool. Serrated edges on top, blood groove cut down the side. You can see the molded in rivets, and the base of the pommel there is designed for striking and hammering. Really cool. Really nice looking accessory. I do like that. I do like how they included that in the design of these action figures. Also included as their primary weapon is the Chris Vector 9mm submachine gun. You can see it's got an EOTech holographic sight on it. It's got a 6-position collapsible and folding stock. And this one has the extended suppressed barrel on it. And this firearm is really unique in the operating system. Whereas most submachine guns and rifles, the bolt travels straight to the rear when the weapon is fired to eject the shell casing, and then to complete the firing cycle, it goes back forward, strips a fresh round off the top of the magazine, pushes it into the chamber, and locks it in place. On the Chris Vector, the bolt actually travels back and then straight down at an angle in this section right here. This is the magazine well, and you can see the magazine protruding right here. And the magazine on this gun is not removable. This section is where the bolt travels to the rear and downward at an angle. And what that does is that mitigates the recoil and muzzle climb of this weapon when it's being fired fully automatic. So it's a really neat firearm. It's got ambidextrous selector switch here. Molding it up here. Here's your bolt release here. And there's your mag release right here by my finger. And one thing I like to do with these figures to open their hands and stuff is I like to use the hair dryer to heat them for just a few seconds. And you can see that one went right in. And then of course he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 3 pairs of interchangeable hands. Overall, it's a really nice action figure. I really like the character and the story behind them. I will say it's disappointing about the display stand, but that's been a recurring issue with all the action figures in Series 1. And it's something that you can attempt to modify on your own with the methods that I've stated. I would attempt to use a hair dryer first to heat the bottom of their foot, and then try to press them onto the peg. And by doing so, what it's going to do is the peg is going to widen the plastic while it's warm and soft. And then when it cools, it will cool back around the peg and harden into place. If that doesn't work, then the next best option would be to take a rotary tool and do a couple laps around the pegs and remove some of this material to make them smaller. That's the safer option. And again, the third option would be to take an X-Acto, as I was demonstrating, to try to widen out the port on the bottom of the foot and just cut away some of the excess material on the inside where they can use the display base. So there you have the Action Force Swarm Trooper by Valiverse. And that concludes our product reviews for Action Force Series 1.